More talks with God, or talks on God with my friend David. Hi, David.
One.
You know, I've been thinking about these different ways, these little tricks that we can do to tap into source, or at least experience being tapped into source. And one of the things that I've practiced and heard talk about is gratefulness. uh, and at least the intention to be grateful, even not even being grateful, like being able to channel and be sincerely grateful for just something really simple like my cup of tea, or something that you think is, this doesn't have anything to do with my real life, but yet it can tap us right into God power. Do you think there's something there?
I think gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to do it. I was talking to my daughter because she's really tapped into God. Yeah, she'll be working with homeless children, and she'll be thinking, "Boy, I really would love to be able to redo the playground for them." And the next day, somebody will call up and go, "Oh, we got $50,000 we want to donate for the children." I mean, it's just like instant,
Yeah.
instant. So I ask her, how does she tap into God? Well, it's as anybody that has a real relationship with God, it just becomes less and less techniques and just more and more relationship, you know? Us knuckleheads who are busy doing techniques and
Right.
you know, and it's just one of the things that came to mind lately for me, what Baba said. He said, if you think God far away, God is far away. You think him near, he's near. So it's like even saying things like tapping into source, to me that's just so uncomfortably distant from my beloved. It's just it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we're pretty good friends, right? So I see you. It's not like I go through some big motions and procedures. Like,
Yeah. Even when I tell you to do that, you still do it.
well, I might do it just to make you happy, but it's like, dude, just give you a hug. It's like so simple, but the power is in the sincerity, right? Power is in the sincerity. So, how do you think of God? How do you think of this whole process? You know, if you think it as some big difficult thing, then think about how would you like your best friend to approach you that way? You'd be like, dude, just knock it off. Come on over here, let's wrestle or let's go get a cup of coffee. And
Yeah.
like, why are you being so formal with me, man? You're freaking me out. So as you think, that's what you experience. And this is why a long time ago, my formal prayers, when I'm saying it out loud for other people, like opening a class or closing a class, it's beloved indwelling God. But when I'm just communicating with God, it's with that sincere heart talking to my best friend. Simple. But gratitude, and this is getting back to my daughter. She goes, Dad, I'm just so grateful all the time. And she'll say, she goes, Dad, she goes, she goes, you got to hear how sweet God is being to me, and just some small detail that it's easy for people to overlook, but it's God taking care of even the small details. I mean, do you think of God as, yes, he's the infinite creator, right? So there's a certain amount of respect due that, but he's also should be your dearest, closest friend,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's a combination of that. I mean, you have respect for the infinite creator, right? But also he's your dearest friend.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, when you think of him as the infinite creator, you wouldn't bother him with showing him the latest little drawing you made.
Right.
You know, they don't bother with that, right? But I mean, God is interested even in the smallest details of your life, right? But I guess it's getting to know God, getting to know God. And the more you know God, the more sweet you see how God is. You see how kind God is, how interested God is in you, right? And as you begin to see that manifest in your life more and more and more, I mean, you know, listen, God is constantly blessing you, but how many of those blessings do you even? Oh, it's like, oh, you never believe my luck, right? Oh, you never believe. Oh, you know, I stumbled on it, and you're dismissing almost everything God is bringing to you as just luck or your own brilliance or whatever, and you miss. Uh, my teacher had said, God cares for you and protects you like the eyelid protects the eye. That's something if you really think about that, you know. And there's so many times I've gone to like do something and I stumble and I miss smashing my toe by a fraction of an inch. I immediately thank you, God. You know, just save my toe. Then there's times I smash my toe, and it's like, okay, all right.
Why God?
I go, okay, I'm sure I deserve that. So I mean,
Well,
you know,
look
it's like
look at
my wife. Go ahead.
as you look at gratefulness and God, being close to God and being grateful, having the experience of being grateful and being close to God. I think uh, there's a lot of people that think of God as this person somewhere, like an anthropomorphic figure that is
Sure.
over there and
Sure.
not over here because it's a figure, right? Just like I imagine a heavenly father, like a human father.
Yeah.
But then uh, my interpretation or my experience of God has been more inclusive. In Him, I live and move and have my being. Right? It's not out there. It is out there, but it also is in here. And the gratefulness, it's a bridge to experience that which is everywhere already. And how do you because you talk like your language right now was more like the figure that loves me, right? Like a person almost.
Yeah.
And it's more than that, but it includes that. I mean, how do you see all that, and how does it tie into gratefulness to have my experience? Because I can be with a best friend and still be completely miserable, and I'm like, I hate my life. I'm glad my friend's here. I
Yeah.
still hate my life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a growth process. I mean, let's just say you're married, right? Both married, we both have amazing wives. How often do you really, really appreciate? I mean, it's easy to just take them for granted, right? But I mean, if you really stop and look, it's like, oh my God, you're just an amazing mother. You know, you're making meals and you're doing laundry, you're doing tons of things that I don't even pay attention to anymore. I just assume, right? So maybe as you grow and mature, you start to realize, oh my God, I'm just really lucky. And maybe you grow more appreciative, right? So it's part of growing as a human being. So, I mean, but it's the same thing. I mean, thinking in terms of the infinite creator, right? As the infinite creator, but also your dearest friend, you're a piece of that being. I mean, so I think just as you grow in as a human and grow in your awareness and grow in your gratitude, you know, I think the depth just gets deeper, deeper, deeper. And that's why I think it's just so important to be careful be careful how you think of God. I mean, if you think of God as just a being up there somewhere, maybe occasionally checking on you, then that's what you'll experience. But if you think of God as the indweller of your own heart, you know, my teacher would say, he goes, he's in you, he's around you, he's above you, he's below you, right? It's just you live and breathe and have your being. So, you know, there's sometimes I go to bed and my prayer at night is, thank you for today. Thank you for my life. You know? So I see somebody like my daughter, who I think is even more consciously and consistently grateful. And then I think then God manifests ever more powerfully. You know, the more you feel the nearness and the closeness of God, the more powerfully God can act in your life. Right? So I mean, it's a continuum, which is an open-ended continuum. I think that awareness can just keep growing till then you realize it's not to you and God. It's just I am that. But when you truly get to the I am, it's not with, well, I am, you know, it's that feeling of being a huge part of that beloved being that is the infinite creator that you are, you know. And I think, you know, father, mother is a good human translation, as long as you think of father and mother in a good way, not like you can't wait to get the heck away from it. But I mean, that those more mature beings that raised you with love and watched your every step to guide you and guard you, you know, I mean, if you had a relationship like that, then looking at God as father and mother, I think then is a good translation until that deepens even more and transcends any of that. I don't even know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's all about what we had talked about the last time of frequency, keeping in touch, keeping aware of your frequency, right? Is this raising or lowering my frequency? And a lot of that frequency is kind of directed by the concepts we have.
It's not a lot of it. It's almost all
of it, right? Change your concepts.
Directed by your concepts. The concepts set the frequency, but once you begin to really understand frequency and start to then tune into frequency, then it transcends the mind. Concepts are part of the mind, right? But it's like my teacher would say, the mind was the trap and the reason for you getting trapped in incarnation after incarnation, but the mind is also the key to unlocking the trap.
Yeah.
So once your concepts start getting high enough that now it allows you to hold higher and higher frequencies, then at some point you drop the mind, the concepts, and just move into beingness. I remember when my teacher first said, don't think. It was absolutely, it's like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know what to do with that. It's like,
could you say more about that?
yeah. He said, don't think. So, but what I realized, what once again he was saying is the mind is the trap. Once again, it went to when he talked about techniques of the way to way out of this trap. You go, okay, you can chant the name of God. You know, yeah, they have to do that. You got to chant the name of God, or you can write the name of God. Oh yeah, you have to write the name of God, and it gives you all these things you have to do. And then another time you go, none of those will get you liberation. It's like what? So I realized what he was saying is it's two parts of the equation. One is tuning high frequency, and then once you tune high frequency, merge into frequency, stop the tuning process and just merge into frequency. So you use the mind to practice tuning high frequency. But once you have a high frequency, then merge your awareness into the high frequency and quit thinking and just be. So, it's almost like, I don't know, a two-part thing. Like, you get in a rocket, you got to get in the rocket. It's a way out of here, right? But once it's expended its fuel, now you launch into maybe an anti-gravity device that doesn't need fuel anymore. Now you take off, right? Maybe it didn't have enough, the anti-gravity wasn't strong enough to get out of the Earth's gravitational field. You needed the rocket. But once you got the rocket, now the second part is you get into this energy vehicle that no longer uses chemical propellants, and off you go into the cosmos. So it's almost kind of like that. It's a two-part thing. So I think in the beginning stages, when you're just freaking clueless and trapped by this whole thing, then these very important concepts and understanding frequency, just you start becoming aware, oh, I think certain ways, I feel certain ways, right? And you go, okay, all right, well, some of those feelings are horrible and some are really good. Oh, all right, you're starting to get a clue, right? So I like how I feel when I do good, kind, loving things, forgiving things. Okay, oh yeah. And so then there's a feeling that goes with that. Oh, so I find I can now hold that feeling. I don't have to be constantly feeding the homeless to feel good. It's like, it's 3 a.m. and I want to feel good. I scour the streets for a homeless person. That becomes a little clumsy, right? So once you realize that it's not the action so much as the action can produce a feeling, then once you begin to understand that, now you can begin to realize, oh, I can regenerate that feeling without action, right? And so now I can hold that feeling, and as I hold that feeling, it allows me to achieve higher and higher frequencies of that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm holding that feeling, it changes the way I do my actions and thoughts. So it's like A leads to B, then B leads to C, right? And you go through the alphabet, or the climbing the frequency ladder, but it starts, with fundamentals. But once you begin to understand that, then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Now you can look at all the scripture, and you can look at spiritual practices, and you understand, oh, it's about the climbing the ladder, frequency ladder is all it's about. And then now you can do it far more effectively, and you can look at any spiritual practice and get it. You understand, it's like, oh, that's what they're doing. But then at some point, you need to transcend the practice and go straight to the energetics.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, now everything you do becomes a spiritual practice, because you hold high frequency in everything you do. Now that's, they talk about meditation, and people say, oh, do you meditate? Well, I don't really do a lot of seated meditation, but by holding my awareness on God as high frequency, I meditate in a sense most of the day. And I think eventually you get to the point where you're meditating all day, where you're holding that frequency. It's like worship. Like people don't understand worship. They read the Old Testament where they worship the golden calf, and they worship this God and that God, and we feel so superior to that. It's like, oh, those so superstitious, primitive people. But you got to understand what true worship is. That what you revolve your mind around. Whatever your mind is contemplating most of the time is what you worship. That's the God you worship. That frequency of consciousness is represented by a God in some religions, but that's what you got to understand. That God is representing a frequency of consciousness, and as you hold your mind on that, that's worship. That's moving energy in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Like the enemy hating Krishna or whoever it was, and
it was like two guardians of the gates of heaven. They screwed up, and basically God, or some maybe lower diplomat, said, okay, you gotta get born on earth to redeem that, so you can choose 10 lives as a devotee of God, or 1 life as an enemy. That's exactly it. And they said, well, how's that work? Well, it's because as a devotee, you think of me once in a while. As my enemy, you're constantly thinking of me, just constantly thinking in a very intense way.
Yeah.
So that was a mind blower for me, because I always thought worship is a projection of love in the direction of some aspect of God.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's what you revolve your mind. So if you know that, then look at modern man. We're still worshiping all the old gods.
Right.
Hasn't changed. Hasn't changed. Yeah. It's just, but it's less honest now. You're worshiping the God of money. You're worshiping the God of power, the God of sex, or whatever your favorite God is. But you're not even smart enough to realize that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You just feel
Well,
triggered.
and then always holding it all with an open hand, so to speak, as in like, I'm not going to hold on to any of these concepts, even the ones that are great, right? Like I need to be thankful, or I know who God is, or I mean, or even my concept of who God is, like your illustration of falling into the briar with all the thorns.
Yeah.
And you know, how that might fit into this right now, because we can figure things out, right? Like maybe okay, well, I can start being thankful on a little thing, and then I can feel that thankfulness, and then I don't need the thing anymore. Once I feel the thankfulness, I can actually ride that thankfulness energy of frequency, and I can feel it, and I can build up the thankfulness without the thing anymore. And that's for me, that feels like tapped into God. But again, that's just this concept that I'm using to.
Well, but concept using mind to tap into beingness, and that's you use the rocket to launch into space, and then you get into a different vehicle. So the mind is used to bring up a frequency, and once you bring up the frequency, merge into the frequency with your awareness and stop thinking about it. Just feel it. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. So you can think of all the things you're grateful of from God, and just start to feel that high frequency as love in your heart, and that feeling of gratitude directed towards God. And then as you just merge into that feeling, that's the way to do it. That's how you do it. But it'll come to the point where either you really can get it quickly, your thought quickly raises frequency, and you can then quickly merge into it, or you start to transcend the need of the use of the mind. You can just directly feel gratitude for God. Just boom, boom, just feel it. And it'll get to the point where you just feel that constantly in your heart. You just walk around with that feeling of gratitude towards God. Yeah. And then it just gets even simpler and far more powerful. Far more powerful.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, anything that you would like to wrap this up? If we were going to use gratefulness, maybe this could be the focus of the video. If we can use gratefulness as a tool for our practice, how would you wrap
so
that?
if you're not used to that, just when I was working with teenage boys, and I realized a huge character flaw for a lot of young people is complete ingratitude. And my teacher would say, the ungrateful person, there's no hope for the ungrateful person. That's pretty heavy. But if you look at people that are completely ungrateful, you realize, yeah, they're pretty poisoned. They're pretty poisoned. So I would have them go through a gratitude exercise. I'd have them say every day, at the end of the day, I want you to write down 3 things you're grateful for. Right. And I had them do that, and they started to change. And then I'd say 3 things you're grateful from your parents for. They couldn't think of a one. You know, so I said, you live in a really nice house. How'd you buy that thing? They go, what are you talking about? I go, how'd you afford your house? I didn't. Well, how are you living there? Well, it's my mom and dad's house. Oh. Well, how'd they buy it? Oh, they're working really, really hard. Oh. Well, how about your bed? How much did you pay for your bed? And so I'd drag them through the mud for a while, make them wake up. And then I'd say, okay, so you walk to school every day? No. How do you get to school? Well, my mom drives me. Okay. I said, I want you every day, write down 3 things that day you're grateful to your parents for. I said, don't repeat the same thing every day. And it started to shift them. And it ended up creating profound changes. Then eventually I said, okay, so every day I want you to thank your parents for something they did. And then after they did that for a few weeks, I'd say, okay, every day I want you to thank your parents for something they did and then do something for them. Bring them a cup of tea. It doesn't have to be anything big, just something. And it just completely changed their hearts. So I'd say it's the same thing for us. We go, oh yeah, kids are ungrateful. Well, how about us? How about our infinite Father, our infinite Mother? You know, oh, how'd you bring yourself into creation? how'd you meet your wife?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, she just I just met her at a party. Oh, okay. You think that was just a coincidence?
Right.
I mean, we have so much. We should basically be grateful for everything. There's nothing accidental in your life. So there's so much to be grateful for that once again, we think, oh, these kids are so ungrateful. We're just as bad. That's where they got it from. Right. So just start to think about, I mean, let's say you're in a car accident, you have one of your legs cut off. You go, well, how do you manage to walk? Well, I still got a leg. Okay, you still got a leg. Maybe your karma was to lose both legs, but that was the mercy of God to leave you one.
Yeah.
Rather than cussing him out that he took one, right? Maybe you're karmically destined to lose both of them, pay a debt, right? And so God modified it, left you one. There's always something to be grateful for. So just practice every day. You can write it down or just take a moment every hour. Just think of one thing you're grateful for in your life and don't keep repeating the same one over and over. When you begin, at first you may think, yeah, you know, I hate my boss. Everything's going bad in the world and you can't think of anything you're grateful for, right?
Right.
But yeah, is your heart beating? Are you glad you're still alive?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Are you in the cancer ward right now?
Right.
Are your kids dying of some god awful thing? Did your house just collapse on your whole family like these poor people over in Turkey and Syria? I mean, think about what some of those people are going through. Are you having a little better than them? Are you grateful for it? Well, express that to your infinite creator. Express that to your dearest friend. Thank you. And that's, you practice that alone. It is an incredibly powerful spiritual practice. It'll change your life. It's funny. I just heard something the other day on the radio. They did an experiment with people being grateful, and it shifted their psychology dramatically. Their level of happiness went up dramatically in a matter of weeks and stayed that way for a couple of years. Yeah, give it a try.
You get your guarantee to get your misery back if it doesn't work.
Well, yeah, you can have all the misery you want. You can just quit being grateful and get it all back if you want. Right. If you miss that friend of yours,
that's right.
But you'll find that as you practice gratitude, it's so powerful, so powerful. Right.
All right. Well, thank you again, David. Let's do this again.
Yeah, let's do this again. And I'm grateful for you providing this opportunity.
Oh, good. Well, I'm grateful for you, Sharon.
All right, brother. Have a good week.
You too.